Hello guys, how you doing? James here. I just want to make another video. Damn, my back is itching for some reason. Uh, I want to make a video, and this is going to be another controversial. I hate doing these kind of videos, but it's about racism. But before I do, I'm going to show you a video on slavery. Then it's going to lead up to give you a narrative. This one guy, this guy's real thorough. He's a historian, and he talks about um, he's a true he's a white fella. He's really thorough. He's one of those thorough dude that when it comes to a thing of history, this guy's on it. His name is a clinical historian. He talks about slavery. Here it is, and about
I was
what is the
343
myth of
pounds.
slavery.
I was falling into depression. Hey, Cypher here. There are a lot of misconceptions surrounding the institution of slavery, especially here in the United States. These myths often serve pernicious political purposes that can be highly detrimental to a proper conception of history. So here are 10 of those myths, debunked in no particular order. Since they aren't in a particular order, each one is fairly different from the other, so you should stick around because the list goes all over the place. Just as an aside, I'm going to be focusing mostly on the US because this is where the myths serve their most malignant political purpose. If you are someone who is offended by these facts, check my sources. As per usual, they are in the description. It is a common meme going around the internet. Anytime a Black Lives Matter issue comes up, I'll see people putting these up on Facebook. Well, these are all wrong. White slaves did exist, but not in the American colonies. Mostly on the Barbary Coast, where Muslim corsairs would capture and enslave whites. In the New World, the closest whites got to being enslaved was indentured servitude. Indentured servitude is a system in which one is forced to labor for a limited period of time. Sometimes there were cruel bosses, but there were many more laws protecting against cruel masters of indentured servants than slaves, and there was, in fact, a legal difference. Also, sometimes people were sentenced to indentured servitude for crimes they had committed. Their contracts could even be sold by owners. But generally, these contracts would only be for 5 to 20 years. Slavery, indentured servitude, was not. Some might call indentured servants sentenced to life slavery, but that would be like calling a modern prisoner sentenced to life a slave. That's just weird. This myth tends to focus on the Irish, who did in fact suffer tremendously under English rule. Some could be said to have been put into serfdom, but that was in the old world. In the new one, the closest they came to slavery was indentured servitude, and it was generally voluntary, not coerced. Nor were they treated more brutally than black slaves. The invention of slavery predates history itself. While it is generally incorrect to say that ancient Persian and Egyptian states practiced slavery, we know from their records that slavery existed in surrounding states. Furthermore, there is archaeological evidence that shows it was a common practice throughout the world, and nearly every place in the world had slavery at some point in its history or prehistory. Chattel slavery, as in the practice of hereditary race-based enslavement, was something that was practiced throughout the Middle East and Asian steppe for centuries prior to 1492. In fact, much of Islamic states practiced it until the fall of the Ottoman Empire in 1918, and some well after that. The last African country to abolish slavery was Mauritania, and it happened in 1981, and it is still a problem for many countries. Several countries, especially Mauritania, still have prominent illegal and de facto slavery. Since the government is unwilling to enforce its mandates against slavery, many people still hold slaves today. European empires, such as the Greeks and Romans, had practiced slavery and were crucial to their economies. The only real reason why they stopped was that the system of serfdom implemented after the Roman Empire made slavery kind of unnecessary for a while. No black man was the first slave owner in America, as internet memes are apt to say. The person they're referring to was an Angolan indentured servant named Anthony Johnson, who in turn came to own indentured servant contracts after he earned his freedom. He even had the first written record of refusing to accept the end of an indentured contract, thereby making the man named John Kacer a legal slave. But there had been slaves in that colony since before the Kacer lawsuit in 1655. African slaves were sold in 1634 there, and I'm not referring to indentured servants either. I mean straight up slaves. This is normally meant to show that slavery in the New World was colorblind, but that doesn't show it in the slightest. It had been racially based since the second voyage of Columbus. Spanish colonies had been practicing chattel slavery for over a century, including in Florida. It took a while for the racism to build up in the English colonies, but it did so, regardless of who owned the slaves. The Civil War was not initially fought to end slavery. Abraham Lincoln was very clear in 1862 by stating, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that." The Emancipation Proclamation was not an easy decision on his part, for there were slave states fighting for the Union. But it was prompted by people like John C. Fremont declaring slaves emancipated under their own authority as military governors. It also gave a crucial purpose to the Union's fight, as people were becoming more and more disillusioned of the Civil War. Instead, the North fought to keep the Union intact. Ending secession was their chief motivation. Of course, the reason for secession in the first place is a bit different. Oh boy, is this a thorny issue. I've done an entire episode on the causes of the Civil War, but it is absolutely undeniable that slavery was a chief motivation for secession. In every document proclaiming secession, slavery is explicitly mentioned. Part of lost cause revisionism. They try to say that slavery was a minor factor, and that the North had been trampling over the rights of the South as independent states. They bring up the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, which states that any power expressed by the Constitution would instead be given to the states, rather than the federal government. They call out that there was a tremendous difference in culture, and that tariffs were choking farmers. These were all factors for sure, but not the most important one. Lincoln being elected was, and the South's fear of his position on slavery made them secede. Everything else is peripheral to this one problem. If you want more on that, go watch the episode that I mentioned before. In 1860, the time of the last census before the Civil War, roughly 36% of freemen in the South owned slaves. That would seem insignificant, since they were in the minority overall. But as one article pointed out, that is roughly the same percentage of Americans with college degrees right now. It is not an insignificant number. Furthermore, the Southern social system was entirely dependent on their peculiar institution. So even if they were not slave owners, most were heavily entrenched in a way of life that was absolutely dependent on slavery. I've heard this from actual graduate students. Hell, Karl Marx made a similar argument in Das Kapital. It's that tired Marxist terminology of wage slavery.
We haven't been paid in 2 weeks and we weren't our wages.
Wages? You want to be wage slaves? Answer me that. No, of course not. But what makes wage slaves? Wages. I want you to be free.
But this is a false equivocation. As I pointed out in class back then, when one possesses different legal rights, it is impossible to say those same people are equal. Slaves had far less legal rights than white factory workers. In some states, they had no rights whatsoever. If a factory owner whipped their workers, they could be sued or even jailed for assault. As a side myth busting, Americans were far more likely to sue each other prior to World War I than ever since. Lawsuits were extraordinarily common in comparison to today, and that myth needs to go away because it is perpetrated by big businesses and benefits them only. Anyways, there were many business practices, such as chaining workers to their factory position, that were decidedly cruel, but that is nothing compared to what many slaves experienced. Now, it is also a myth that all slave owners were cruel and abusive. For many, slavery was not as unpleasant as movies like to make it out to be. After all, one had to keep slaves controlled, and love is often a far more potent force of coercion than fear. The various acts of rebellion that were prevalent throughout the history of slavery had to be curtailed somehow, and many masters were kind to their slaves, but the peculiar institution had a corrosive effect on anyone involved. It is true that there were slaves who were forced to work for the Confederacy. There is no record of slaves voluntarily working for the Confederacy save for one particular instance. Towards the end of the Civil War, the Confederate Congress passed a bill that allowed for a slave regiment to be created. It was supposedly voluntary, but then again, so was their Conscription Act, and conscription, by no stretch of the definition, can be defined as voluntary. In either case, the regiment that was created never saw action, and was a divisive issue for the Confederates in general. The Colombian slave trade was created by Europeans, and the place that they received slaves was in West Africa. But unlike what is commonly conceived, they did not just go raiding inland with nets to grab up unsuspecting tribesmen. The African slave trade was predicated on Africans selling other Africans. It was a system already in place before Columbus arrived to take the first slaves to the New World in 1498. Like most slave institutions, it was created by capturing prisoners during warfare. Europeans had no need to kidnap Africans, like they show in movies all the time. Africans were already doing that for them. They developed an entire economy around that trade. This devastated Western Africa, which has yet to recover from the economic circumstances imposed by the transatlantic slave trade. That doesn't vindicate Europeans for their slave trading, of course. Two wrongs don't make a right, let alone how Europeans would encourage the trade through their economic incentives and political maneuvering in Africa. It was a lucrative business, after all. It just means that Africans were active participants in the trade and not only victims of it.
Welcome to simpler, faster part shopping. Now on the
This is
go.
true.
With the new Cat Central app, you can get cat parts and
First of all, slavery is still an ongoing issue. Many countries throughout the world have clear slavery, and not just coerced labor like Chinese factory workers. I mean, chattel slavery still exists.
We weren't allowed to be reporting on slavery. It's a practice the government tries to hide from outsiders. But as we would find, slavery is everywhere in Mauritania, if you know where to look.
It is illegal worldwide, but practiced anyways in a number of countries, so slavery has not ended. Furthermore, abolishment of slavery was not an invention of white people. The Qin dynasty were the first recorded abolitionists. They are the reason why we call that country China.
China, 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 China now.
And the first Chinese emperor was an abolitionist. Slavery fluctuated throughout world history. The idea that slavery is inherently wrong does not originate in Europe, nor is it particularly unique there. Abolition was also motivated by slave revolts. Slaves were not just docile servants, but often actively opposed their own enslavement. Slave revolts happened throughout the modern period, one of which culminated in the liberation of Haiti. long before most European countries abolished slavery. Even when they were forced into the most wretched conditions possible aboard ship on the Middle Passage, there were around 250 shipboard slave revolts. It was such a problem that slave ships often had barricades to defend themselves against such revolts. There's also a kind of disgusting side to claiming that whites freed the slaves. For how wonderful it is that the captors freed the captives. How nice of them to just decide on their own volition to stop oppressing people. This is a particularly pernicious myth, because it makes slaves objects rather than actors in their own right, as well as completely forgetting the Western powers were particularly egregious when it came to the abolition of slavery. All of these myths need to be stopped.
Have you ever wondered, what does watermelon have to do with race? And what is so offensive about watermelon? Don't white people like watermelon too? Well, the stereotype of African Americans being excessively fond of watermelons came during a specific period in history and was used to fulfill a specific political purpose. After slaves won their emancipation, they made watermelon a symbol of their newfound freedom by growing, eating, and selling it. Southern whites responded by using the fruit to depict African Americans as unclean, lazy, and childishness. This trope was so widely accepted within popular culture that the origins of it are almost forgotten. The trope of the racist watermelon didn't emerge until after emancipation. In the early 1900s, the European imagination associated the typical watermelon eater with Italians or Arabs. A British officer stationed in Egypt in 1808 described the watermelon as a poor Arab feast, noting that the locals ate them ravenously as if the passers-by was going to snatch them away. Watermelon rinds were apparently a common sight on the streets of the port city of Rosetta. In Egypt, watermelon was also associated with uncleanliness, laziness, and childishness. These associations eventually made their way to America, but watermelon hadn't yet been connected to African Americans. In fact, at that time, Americans were just as likely to associate watermelons with white Kentucky hillbillies or New Hampshire yokels as they would a black South Carolina enslaved person. During chattel slavery, some plantation owners would allow their slaves to cultivate and even sell their own watermelons. Sometimes they would even give them a day off during the summer to enjoy their first watermelon harvest. Southern plantation owners viewed this slave's delight in watermelon as an indication of their own supposed compassion. Slaves were also careful to relish watermelon in a manner that followed the code of conduct established by whites. As a result, whites could expect slaves to act in a manner of a caricature of a watermelon craving, juice-driven pickaninny. Refusing to comply with this stereotype jeopardized the precarious relationship between master and enslaved. The abolishment of enslavement drastically altered the relationship between black people and whites. Formerly enslaved individuals avoided sharecropping on white-owned plantations by growing, consuming, and selling their own watermelons. This behavior of enjoying your freedom and cultivating your own land and selling watermelon in public markets provoked a major fear within the white community. Newspapers would then stoke this fear that whites have and strengthen the idea of African Americans having an affinity for watermelons. In 1869, Frank Leslie's illustrated paper published a cartoon of an African American eating a watermelon. The accompanying article stated that Southern African Americans have a strong liking for watermelon. They thoroughly enjoy eating it. 2 years later, a Georgia newspaper reported the arrest of a black man for allegedly poisoning a watermelon with the intention of killing his neighbor. The article compared the man's actions to that of the Ku Klux Klan and asked if the Republican Congressional Subcommittee investigating the Klan should look into this incident in particular. The article also described the man as walking to the courthouse carrying an enormous watermelon. Medical journals also wrote with a scientific earnest about black patients. They claimed that their intestines were clogged with watermelons. In an 1888 report by Dr. D.Z. Holliday of Harlem, Georgia, describing how he broke down a bowel obstruction of an African American man, he claimed that the mass was filled with 820 seeds, all of which the man had ingested in one night. Also, during the 1880 election season, Democrats accused South Carolina state legislature which was majority black during Reconstruction, of having wasted the taxpayers' money on watermelons for their own enjoyment. In 1915, the white supremacist film D.W. Griffith, A Birth of a Nation, included a watermelon feast as a depiction of the emancipation, as corrupt northern whites encouraged former enslaved people to stop working and enjoy watermelons instead. This idea of implicating black appetites and black character through the watermelon, with the primary message being that African Americans were not ready for their own freedom, and that stereotype of associating blacks with watermelon remains a common occurrence in the United States even today. For example, in 1947, when Jackie Robinson broke Major League Baseball's color barrier, he was confronted by race-baiting taunts, including crowds throwing garbage, tomatoes, and watermelon rinds at him. Even in 1989, blacks protesting the killing of a black boy in Bensonhurst, New York, were taunted by whites, some of them holding watermelons over their heads and screaming at them to go home. There are literally hundreds of instances over the years where the watermelon in association with African Americans being used as a tool of insult. Even decades after the end of the Jim Crow era, this cultural symbol of blacks and watermelon continues. Thank you. I'm your host, Country Boy, and this has been One Mic History. I'm going to continue with this mini-series, and if you have questions or you just want to leave your comments, like I said, you can do so.
Leading off the top of the third, it's a blue single center.
Hey everybody,
What's
I'm
this
here with
one?
Dave, who just got a nice win.
You know, the white supremacist is extremely delusional. They really think that their particular culture is just so much better than everybody else's, and then when you hold up a mirror to who they really are, and the devilment that they practiced in the past, definitely in the current today, they want to complain about just giving them their history. For instance, they want to burn books. Well, case in point, you have this, white woman, which is going to basically explain their culture. And as I stated before, individuals who are cool and individuals who put out the truth, I always will rock with an individual, but not collectors. Look at roll that clip.
Sit back and buckle up, because I'm about to drag the shit out of you. You said, but it hurts. You don't understand. They don't appreciate our white culture. We only want them to help themselves while we run this. Whew, now, first of all, if you want to talk about white culture, our culture is genocide, rape, murder, sexual assault, pedophilia, spreading disease, enslavement, brutality, horror. We are domestic terrorists in our own land. The KKK. What happened in Charleston? Those were domestic terrorists. January 6th, domestic terrorists. White culture is barbaric. So what part of our culture do you think that black people should appreciate? Would it be the enslavement? Would it be all of the lynchings? Would it be Jim Crow? Would it be Law and Order and the war on drugs, which was nothing but a war on black people? Would it be the fact that the CIA deliberately flooded the black communities with crack for the sole purposes of decimating the black community? COINTELPRO, look it up. Would it be the deconstruction of Reconstruction? Would it be all of the massacres that were committed against the black community as soon as they started to become successful and thrive, like Black Wall Street, for one of the most iconic examples? Would it be the voter suppression? Would it be sharecropping, which was nothing more than slavery? Would it be the 13th Amendment that legalizes slavery that you think that they should appreciate? Would it be the oppression? Would it be the redlining? Would it be the Homestead Act, where they gave away a shit ton of land to white people and gave the the newly freed enslaved not a motherfucking thing? Although they were promised 40 acres and a mule, they never got. But white people got reparations for the loss of their slaves. Would it be the underfunding of the education system? Would it be mass incarceration? Would it be the school to prison pipeline? Would it be the police brutality and the black people people who are murdered every single day by those who are supposed to quote unquote serve and protect, which by the way, they took that off of the police vehicles. You will not see that anywhere because that is actually not their job. They are modern day slave patrol. Is that what the black community should appreciate? Would it be the complete denial of their experience? Or is it the lack of our accountability that they should appreciate? I think you need to appreciate education more.
Trust me, they know their culture, they know who they are. Every day, in order for white supremacy to work, they have to lie to themselves every day that they're such good people, and they have to be like Matt Walsh and say colonization was a great thing, slavery was a great thing. Oh, if slavery didn't happen, black people would live in America. So really, slavery was good. That's the asinine things that they have to tell themselves. I would not want that to be the legacy of my people. To be freaking colonizers, enslavers, pedos, violating women, children, men. I wouldn't want that to be my legacy. I would want my legacy to be something great that anybody can look back on, and not something that people are so embarrassed about what the legacy is that they want to get rid of the books. Do you know how embarrassing that is? That when you look at your own history, that you want to not want nobody to even learn your history, how horrible it is? You know you suck majorly when you don't want nobody to know anything. Because see, for a long time, people was learning this sanitized, pseudo history that they was giving us in school. That's why we didn't learn anything. And then when the internet came up, all the lies started falling down to the ground and the truth come up.
First of all, if you want to talk about white culture, our culture is genocide, rape, murder, sexual assault, pedophilia, spreading disease, enslavement, brutality, horror. We are domestic terrorists in our own land. The KKK. What happened in Charleston? Those were domestic terrorists.
And the problem is, when they talk about critical race theory and all of that, is that that's about white people not learning the truth about their own history. Not us. We have been telling people about their history. But when white people learn about it, they're like, man, I don't really want to be a part of that. That is horrible. I'm talking about those who have a heart to see what humanity really is. But it's nothing that they can look at the white supremacists and say they did a good thing. Everywhere they go, they use people. They destabilize countries. They do experiments in people's countries. Yes, they're involved in human trafficking and all kind of other things they're involved with, right? So there's nothing good that they are offering. Nothing. And the only thing good that they have produced is when other people have helped them produce it.
White culture is barbaric. So what part of our culture do you think that black people should appreciate? Would it be the enslavement? Would it be all of the lynchings? Would it be Jim Crow? Would it be Law and Order and the war on drugs, which was nothing but a war on black people? Would it be the fact that the CIA deliberately flooded the black communities with crack for the sole purposes of decimating the black community? COINTELPRO, look it up.
Because you remember when they first came to Jamestown, they failed. That's why they needed African slaves, because they couldn't even do anything on their own. Because if they really could do things on their own, they wouldn't have needed black people. They wouldn't need Hispanics to do all their work. Look at Florida right now. The Hispanic people are leaving in droves because DeSantis say that he don't want no undocumented people there. So they're leaving. And where are they, since they're so much better than everybody and they have a great culture? Where are they on those job sites? They're still not going over there. They'll let Florida go to the ground before they actually go work. Well, that's been the history because they didn't do no work, at all because we were doing all the work. And then now Hispanics and other immigrants are doing the work. Just that simple.
Wow. But you say maybe that's just a tad bit. Maybe they kind of taking off. Wait a minute. Other people have experienced present day in 20th century, 21st century, and 20th century of sundown towns. You're gonna hear from the people themselves that travel in trucks, went to school, everything.
Hey guys, it's me again, Cindy, and welcome back to another episode of TikTok These Guys. I trust you all are doing so great. Thank you so much for clicking to watch this video. Guys, in today's video, we are gonna be talking about this video right here. Now, this video is about sundown towns. This man in this video is saying that sundown towns still exist. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because as I was going through the comments, I read a particular comment, ooh, can this be true? Now, some people staged this video literally, sharing their experience, which I thought I should share these videos with you. Please check this video out.
To all my melanated individuals out there who do a lot of traveling on the road like myself, you should know what a sundown town is, because believe it or not, they still exist. And how do I know this? Because I've been through one. BuzzFeed did an entire article about my experience, which I would like to share with you all. Now, for those of you all who don't know, these are towns that African Americans are not allowed to be in after a certain time because it could get bad for them. Back in 2020, I went to Devil's Bathtub. Devil's Bathtub is located deep in the southwestern portion of Virginia. Now, as you're on your way there, you're going to pass through poor neighborhoods that have nothing but rebel flags flying high, and you have a lot of one-way roads that have no street lights or cameras. At one point, I thought to myself, damn, I could easily get murdered and no one would ever know. Now, obviously, nothing happened to me. But as we were leaving, we took the scenic route back home. I remember traveling along Route 119, stopping at a gas station. The cashier was like, you must not be from around here, huh? I was like, nah, I'm just passing through getting gas. She was like, yeah, you best not be around here after a certain time. This is a sundown town. Now, I don't think she had bad intentions. I think she was just looking out for me. But that was the day that I learned what a sundown town is, and they still exist. Now, they might not be listed on the books, but the ideologies still remain the same in those towns.
Wow, he just literally shared his experience. Like he said in this video, he stopped by at the gas station, and of course the lady there spotted him out like, you are not from this town. Please hear these stories, these stitches that are coming up. I just want you to hear them out. Please check the stitches out.
All my melanated individuals out there who do a lot of traveling on the road like myself, you should know what a sundown town is.
So, Yolanda, say hello. She's enjoying her afternoon walk. So, go back, watch that original creator's video. What he talks about is sundown towns. And I don't remember when I learned the term sundown town, but I do remember my first experience with one. 20-something, almost 20 years ago, I'm leaving my technical school, graduating. I'm fully in the Air Force, and I have a truck, so I could go home. I could drive myself home and leave from Texas back to Mississippi. So I'm driving from San Antonio, and I'm so happy I get released from training. No more reporting statements, no more 341s or whatever that little form that we have to keep on us at all time and whatnot. And going home to see my mama. So, Mom, I made it. I'm in the Air Force. And so I just randomly got released that day, immediately packed up my truck and hit the road. I did not eat that day. So I'm about 5 hours east of San Antonio, just east of Houston. And I was like, man, I am on my last calorie. And I pull off I-10 in a little town, I think it's called Vidor, V-I-D-O-R, Texas, Vidor. And I stop into a McDonald's, and I tell you, the music stopped as soon as I walked in that McDonald's. And this is right after the sun had gone down. And everybody stopped there was doing, and everyone in there was staring at me. Customers, employees, the manager stuck their head out the back, and I asked for some food. And as a former McDonald's employee when I was in high school, I have never seen food be delivered to a customer that fast. I'm fairly certain they just gave me somebody else's food so I could get my, black ass out of the restaurant. It was the most awkward, painful situation I have ever been in. And keep in mind, I've been in the Air Force a little over 6 months at this point, so I kind of forgotten that, America is a really bad place, and some places are worse than others. And, so I just took that food, promptly threw it away, and I stayed hungry until I made it to Lafayette, Louisiana. where I stopped to get food. And all the times that I've gone back and forth, up and down I-10 over the last 20 years, I still do not stop in that town, and I don't gas up or get food until we hit Lafayette. So, now you know.
Sundown town is, because believe it or not, they still exist.
No, because he's not lying. I actually been to a sundown town. It was actually my 8th grade year in middle school, right? And I was the only black girl on our basketball team at the time. So we had a basketball tournament in Vega, Texas. And so I had a basketball tournament in Vega, Texas. And I didn't know anything about Vega, Texas before going there, anything like that. So immediately, we're going into the school for our basketball tournament, and my friend is all holding on to me, like, hold on, like, you know, like, all over me, and I'm just like, girl, why you on me? And, like, very protective, like, a kind of protective kind of thing. And at that point, I did not realize I was in the sundown town area. But when we first entered the city of Vega, before we got to the school, I did see a sign outside that says, welcome to Vegas, Texas, no colored people out at night. And I seen, like, on business windows as we were going down the street and things like that, I had seen, like, coloreds and whites. Now, I'm looking at this stuff, but I'm like, I cannot believe my eyes are seeing what I'm seeing. Like, it scarred me for life pretty much. And I'm just like, there's no way that this shit still exists. I'm thinking in my head, should I even be here? But back to the tournament, right? We walk into school, there's nothing but white students. I don't see not one black person in sight. I'm the only black person there, and I am the black girl on the team. So my friend is like sticking beside my side real hard, and I'm like, girl, what's going on? She was like, well, this school, like, I heard it's kind of racist and things like that. That's what she told me. So it clicked. I was like, I'm in a fucking sundown town. So we're playing our basketball game, whatever. I'm not for sure if we won that game or not, but I know I heard comments from the stands while I was playing saying, oh, that black girl this, that black girl that. I can't really for sure remember what they were saying, but they were talking about my skin complexion. Yeah, but definitely after I left that basketball tournament, it kind of scarred me for life. And I remember it, like, very, like, seeing the colored, like, that was my first encounter with a sundown town, like, straight up. And it scarred me for life that towns and people like that still exist. Like, it's crazy, but I tell my coworkers this: you need to know what a sundown town is. And to my black people, if you guys are going to be traveling to places, you need to make sure that you do your research to make sure that you're not passing through an area that's a sundown town, okay? For your safety. Because we still have ignorant people out here who want to be back in those times. And they just don't want to face the fact that we're finally free. So just, you know what I'm saying? Do your research before you travel anywhere.
Sundown town.
What's up, folks? So I've gotten sent this video a couple times. So sundown towns, let's talk about it. So back in the day, folks used a book called the Negro Motorist Green Book, and this allowed African Americans to be able to know which places were safe to stop at for food and gas and stuff like that along the road. So since I'm a van lifer traveling all over the country, there are some practices that my family did because my grandparents were actually sharecroppers and my family grew up on a farm that I actually took into my van life journey. And so I like to share some of those things with you because I feel like it might be part of the reason why I've been able to keep safe these last few years on the road. So one of the main ones is that we were always told to never let your gas get below half a tank. And then if you do need to stop, make sure that it's at a main gas station. So like if you're traveling, you know, your Sheetz, Wawa, Pilot, Flying J, not the kind of country stores. These will typically take you off on back roads, and these areas typically are not well lit, which is not ideal. Another one is that I do it a little differently now, but my folks would always fry chicken early before we would go somewhere, and they would wrap it in aluminum foil. And I thought it was just something my folks did until I did some research into it, and I found out back in the day, folks that didn't feel comfortable stopping on the road, this is what they would do. They would fry chicken before their trips, wrap it in the aluminum foil. And so I mentioned that to say is, I know the world is a little different, but like I said, I'm just always traveling place to place. I'm not researching sundown towns or any of that. So if I need to stop and get some food and I don't feel comfortable with the area, I may just pull over at a rest stop and cook me some food. So I say all that to say I always keep at least one meal on me at all times. If you're not a van lifer, keep a snack. And so if you see my content, you know that I do whatever I want and I go wherever I please. So none of this is to try to scare you or to make you change your mind. It's just one of those things of awareness. And as I like to say, don't put yourself in situations to piss yourself off. So if there is a way that you can make sure that you have a good trip and get to where you're going and get back home to your family safely, then I want you to do that. It's a shame that these things were ever this way, and it's a shame that in some places they still are. But it is what it is. It's not going to stop us from traveling. People are always so worried about me when I go to places like Maine or maybe Alabama or West Virginia. But, you know, we're not going to worry about that. Like I said, we're just going to do what we can, and we're going to stay prayed up, and everything will be all right. So if you didn't know Sundown still exists, this country boy from North Carolina is letting you know that, yes, they do. But there are ways to keep yourself safe, and don't let other people's ignorance stop you from living your best life.
To all my melanated individuals out there who do a lot of traveling on the road like myself, you should know what a sundown town is, because believe it or not, they still exist.
Black travelers, those living in the U.S. and those that are visiting the U.S., listen up. Especially those that are visiting the U.S., because I'm sure they don't talk about the U.S.'s history with sundown towns.
No, they don't.
So this information I'm about to share with you could very well save your life. Alright, so here is the only database that has sundown towns by state. So if you are a black van lifer, or if you are traveling from state to state, this website you need to be using. So very quickly, this is how it works. There is a map below that you can click on any state, and it will give you a list of the suspected sundown towns in 2023. For the purposes of this video, I clicked on the state of Louisiana. And as you can see, these are the list of towns that are suspected to be sundown towns. If they have a asterisk next to it, that means that it's not a suspected sundown town, but of interest for other reasons. You can also email them to get this list updated if you personally know a town that is a suspected sundown town. So on the website it says a sundown town is not just a place where something racist happened, it is an entire community or even a county that for decades was all white on purpose. That's why some of these are still suspected, but you should definitely watch out when you're traveling through them. All white is in quotes because some towns allowed one black family to remain when they drove out the rest. From experience, the states I have felt the most unsafe is Mississippi and Oregon. So when I tell you, there are no words to describe how scary it feels when you are traveling through a state, a known state or town that has a history of hating people like me.
This indestructible $99 drone is now available in the US. This powerful $99 drone is now available.
Yo, let me tell y'all as quickly as I can about my night in a sundown town. Excuse me, yes, I said that correctly. A sundown town. 2022, a sundown town.
Last year.
For those who don't know what a sundown town is, look it up on Google. But anyway, so I get a load going to a particular city in Texas, and I'm like, okay, well, let me head on over here and drop this off. They're gonna pay me this much. That's perfect. I like that. It's a quick 200 miles, make it quick. You know, whatever the amount was, great, cool. I get there, and I look at the exit. I'm like, wait a minute. It took me to exit 861A. For those who don't know, it's a place called Vidor, Texas, Vidor, Vidor. I'm like, uh-oh. I've heard stories, like pretty much everybody I know in Texas that's black tells me, do not go to Vidor, Texas. I'm like, okay. Yet here I was in Vidor, Texas. My load didn't deliver until this morning. This is from the perspective of yesterday. Didn't deliver until tomorrow at 8. It was like 5:30. So I get to the place. I'm not giving names of companies or anything like that. But while I'm driving to the place, I see trailer parks. I see a bunch of Confederate flags. I saw a doll of a black man. It was just a doll wrapped in a Confederate flag hanging from a tree by its neck. That's the type of stuff I saw in Vidor, Texas, which led me to believe that the reputation was fairly earned. I get there, the security guard says, hey, we got a code red. The guy gets on the phone, was like, hey, I can't, I don't want to be responsible for this guy's safety. Let me go ahead and find somebody because we stopped taking loads at 4 o'clock. But I'll get somebody over here from the other side of the plant. Tell him to hang on. So I hang on. I'm doing what I got to do. Finally, somebody comes by about 15 minutes later. The guy said, let me hurry up and get you unloaded. He quickly gets me unloaded. And he said, dude, you might want to get up out of here as soon as possible. We're at sundown. You want to leave here now. Don't stop until you at least get to Beaumont. I was like, okay. He was like, no, seriously. I said, well, what about the police? Why aren't the police there? Police turned a blind eye. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do what you said. He said, yeah, man, I don't want to see you in any trouble. So I went ahead and I took off, headed to Beaumont. I went to the Petro in Beaumont, slept there, and I had my Armalite Rifle 15 with me, slept with a couple extra magazines. But I'm safe, y'all, but that was my night in the sundown.
Wow, this story's right.
Man.
Guys, I just want to say this. Of course, this video is for educational purposes, right? Before you embark on any journey, especially now that summer is around the corner, make sure you do your research. Do your research because people are missing. Some downtowns still exist.
Exactly.
The last guy said he experienced that just last year, 2022, and this is 2023. Please. Now, I randomly took some screenshots of comments so you guys can see other people's opinion. I was reading comments and people were literally sharing their experience. Let me know your take in the comment section and also let me know.
Yeah, they don't, if anybody's true that love you, care about you of another race, they will tell you this. They don't go into, no, America, oh yeah, no, they were just having no. They need to tell you the truth about this, but you think that's bad. Watch what this woman says about
Before starting this video, about
racist
I want
people.
to ask, what is it with white women and genocide? Because you see, a couple of months ago, I did this video where we saw this white South African woman calling for the genocide of black South Africans. For those of you who missed that video, I'm going to link it down below in the description. Fast forward to today. Now again, we are seeing another white woman calling for the genocide of non-white people. So me, I'm wondering, what exactly is the deal with these women and genocide? But without further ado, let's roll the clip.
I think there should be another genocide. Or a genocide.
You say genocide, you mean the women, the children, the kids?
Absolutely.
Why? She's holding them right there.
Because they're a poison and they need to be eradicated so my children and all the other white children have a chance in this world.
They think genocide is also.
How ironic, really, that we are watching a white person call non-white people poison. It's very ironic, isn't it? She is the one who's presently acting like a poison on camera. She is presently being a poison in this world by making such an evil statement. By her having such thoughts to begin with, this one, do yama yama, this one is beyond redemption. But she thinks it's other people that are the poison in this world. And the fact that she said all of this very boldly on camera, she even said it in front of her children. This right here is proof that racialism is not coming to an end anytime soon, because these folks pass down racialism from generation to generation like it's some family heirloom or something. Just look at her, you know that she's definitely poisoning those kids with the poison she has in her.
This video is for those of you all who, when you do acknowledge racism, act like it's some mythical creature thousands of years in the past that we somehow managed to vanquish. But you can't give me a date to when that vanquishing occurred. This video clip shows how are raising their children to be and instilling them with the idea that racism is their birthright and it will help them protect the world that they believe they own. Let that sink in.
And it's so crazy when you think about it on a larger scale, the history of these people, how they actively went around the world being a poison, just walking around like a big ball of virus, committing atrocities left, right, center. But now we watch them call us, the people who suffered at the end of their brutality, at the end of their violence, poison. I mean, just look at this woman. Me, I'm like, madam, you obviously have more bigger issues to be worrying about in this life. But here you are, investing all of your energy into being a better rate to desist. Like, rate to deceasism is somehow going to make your life better.
Yeah.
You know, watching this woman speak, something just came to my head right now. It's crazy how these people still haven't come to the realization that the reason why they are white is because non-white people exist. If non-white people cease to exist, they won't be white. And it's also crazy to me that these people haven't realized yet that the reason why they have and enjoy white privilege right now is because non-white people exist. If non-white people don't exist, they won't have white privilege because they would just be dealing with themselves. They would not be prioritizing themselves.
That's true.
Because they would have no other people
Yeah.
to prioritize themselves over. So when this woman says that, oh, they should eradicate other people so her children and other white children can have a better chance in life, I'm like, your children won't automatically start having a better chance in life when you eradicate other races. Your children will still have to compete with the other white people. Then you guys will be competing with yourselves. Then you guys will be fighting yourselves like you guys did in the past before you invented racism. That's exactly what you guys will be doing. You guys will be killing each other like you guys did in the past.
Like the Civil
But
War.
in this woman's little way to desist head, she thinks that, oh, if we eradicate everybody, then her and her children are going to automatically have a better life. No, you and your children will be competing with other white people. And trust me, the 1% who is going to be controlling you guys then would not care about you just because you are white. But to sum this all up, I think what is presently causing these people's frustration is the fact that they are now starting to realize just how mediocre that they actually are. Because you see, in the past, all they needed to bring to the table was their whiteness, and all of their dreams would come true. But now that they find themselves in a world where they have to compete with other people, they are now starting to realize that they cannot actually compete because they do not compare. While for the past 400 years, they were just being mediocre and their whiteness was making all of their dreams come true, other races of people actually had to work, improve their skill, have talent, build up certain qualities in themselves like tenacity and all of that good stuff that they actually need to push forward in life. But white people have over the years just been sitting back and being white. They didn't need to build or work on themselves or have talent because just being white was all the talent you would ever need, right? But now that times are changing, the mediocrity that used to cut it for them in the past isn't cutting it for them anymore. So they are falling back in line and having to watch other non-white people progress in life, and they can't stand it. And this is why we see people like her calling for the genocide of non-white people, because in her small rate to desist head, if we can eradicate all of these non-white people, then we can have a fighting chance, because then we won't have to compete with these people. They'll be gone. We'll just be here winning and winning and winning, right? We won't have to deal or have to be forced to compete with these non-white people anymore because they won't be here. But like I said earlier, this woman still haven't gotten the reality check, the real reality check that she has to get or she needs to get, which is the fact that, like I said earlier, even if you eradicate all non-white people, you still would have to compete. Yes, you won't be competing with non-white people, but you still will be competing with the bunch of white people that you would now be living with. Which is why I wonder also, when you put into consideration the fact that they are still going to have the 1% of white people controlling them and dictating what kind of life they would have, why do these people think their lives will be any better if non-white people cease to exist?
This is going to be hard for a lot of female to hear, but I want you to pay very close attention to me. If the day ever comes where your white supremacist boyfriends and husbands get their wish, and every single minority in this country is killed or ran away, it is going to be hell for you. I want you to look me in the face when I say this.
Yep.
It is going to be hell for you. Because do you think in your little heart of hearts that somehow getting rid of every single minority that walks the face of America is somehow going to give you equality and partnership with those same white men? Do you not understand how this works? You see, these white men are gonna find somebody to subjugate. And if they get rid of all the minorities for the white men and the white women, guess what your ass just became? You will now be sitting in the same seat that we are. And you will be subjugated to those same white men. That is why watching white women advocate for a complete eradication of all minorities in this country is hilarious. As if somehow you're going to be equal with those same white men that you now support. Nothing in this world works that way. If you're going to give white women enough power to get rid of minorities, you will not be equal to them. They are going to subjugate you just as much as they want to subjugate us. So, for this lady to say that she wishes for a genocide or another genocide, she obviously doesn't realize that if we're all gone, she's going to be under the boot of the same men she advocated for in the first place.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Very valid point our good brother just brought up. Maybe they would listen, maybe they won't, but that's their business. I want to add my 2 cents though very quickly. Isn't it crazy how, let's say for a moment that this dream of hers comes true? These same white women are going to be betting the men who are going to be putting them through the hell that brother pointed out in his video. It's quite interesting when you think about it, isn't it? I mean, we don't even have to think too far into the, hypothetical future that whatever it is she's speaking of happens, right? We can look at society today. Like if you look at what's happening in America, in the United States of America, with the turn of Roe v. Wade, and all of the things that are happening with white men in politics trying to take autonomy over women's body. You see what they are doing there, right? So you know exactly how these women are going to be treated in this their new world where other races don't exist and it's just going to be them and their men. You know exactly how they are going to be treated. If this woman's dream ever comes true, that would mean white supremacy would cease to exist, because you would not need white supremacy if all you have is white people. If white supremacy stops to exist, that's the day white women would finally come to realize exactly what they mean to white men.
Absolutely. And you know what? By she saying that, she just cursed people. She just cursed herself. Because when you talk about genocide of the people, you see what's happening with the birth rate in the white community. They tried this before. And it's not going to work. Because you're going to have to stand before the Most High God one day with this hatred towards the people. And wait till you see what he looked like in the book of Revelation, in the book of Daniel. Wait till you see that. And you have all that anger towards a being, a bronze skinned on the planet. Wait till you see the bronze skinned person in heaven. Wait till you see it. Wait till you see it. And I would love to see the look on your face. And you know what? You're going down there with Hitler and Marcus Sanger and all the other ones. You're going to a place. Let me tell you where you're going if you don't repent of your mindset. You're going to a place. So when you come to the end of your life, there ain't no white heaven. There ain't no black heaven, brown heaven, or yellow heaven. It's heaven. And all that you have spoke on non-minorities on this planet, you won't be here to enjoy it. And if your kids carry all the generation, they'll be cursed in the womb. Your daughters and your son. How you like them apples? So they carry on your mess, then you just put the curse on them. Think about that. And you don't understand any stupid individuals who have these all white towns have stopped the progression of the economy. Take, for example, if Columbus, Ohio, where our president had that mindset, in other areas, they wouldn't grow. What does that mean if a town doesn't grow? And you keep it a sundown town, you won't have no economy. Therefore, you go barren in the land. You'll have white people, but you won't go. You go barren. America is, let me say, you will go barren, and it's going barren as we speak. And all them towns that they mentioned, I bet you they barren. I bet you they're not getting no income coming through. What big tech companies, large companies will come to a sundown town? From whether here or across the seas, you backward ass dumb individuals. You're so dumb, you're so ignorant. You're stopping your own progression of yourself, your school, the taxes on your road, and everything by being a sundown town. And this gets over to other parts of the world where a billionaire, a millionaire wants to open up a factory in the U.S. Your town gets passed over because you a sundown town. Your area, your young people have to leave because you're a sundown town. Because you have no progression and we don't want any other people. Look at those towns. Look at those former sundown towns in America. Because there's a couple people that tell you where is the jobs. Sometimes where it's 90% white. And the only thing they got to do is a few jobs in the town. There's restaurant and retail. The industry's gone. And there's only maybe 1 or 2 companies. So the rest of your people in your all white town have to leave to go to another town. These backward individuals don't even see this coming because they don't want to integrate with the other people. But money integrates, currency integrates with other nations. Places like Vidor, Texas is going to only hurt themselves in the end because that gets out. Everything will flow in the economy right past that place, and nobody wants to spend $1 or a dime there. And your money can only flip so many times in a town. So I hope people like Vidor and other towns across this America, you already suffering. The economy is already suffered. So if it hits in the bigger cities that suffer, what do you think about your small little sundown all white towns is going to be? And you can't blame that on anybody but yourself, because you went to your part and said don't bring no other groups of people here. That probably bring economy. That scares out the economy. What unless you find some backward ass bootlicking racist person who carries the same value, but he can only produce so many jobs. These people are the dumbest people I've ever. And it's dumb to have a sundown town because there's no economy. The economy, your police don't get new cars, your fire department don't get new equipment, taxes don't come through to take out for company employees, for bringing new people, working class people. Your schools don't get upgraded, your roads don't get upgraded, your area don't get upgraded. But these dumb, ignorant, backward ass, hillbilly, inbred, redneck son of guns don't even understand that. They don't understand that. It brings up your town. It brings more economy, more jobs, so your young people don't have to leave, because they have to leave the town. So they have to go to a bigger place, a bigger city where it's integrated. So you pushing this whiteism is not going to help them. It's not going to help them. It's going to hinder them. And these dumb ass individuals. And now you see the history of America. And so I put that together, and it goes around the world. I hope somebody see it and don't come to certain areas where there's sundown towns, and they're gonna go watch them towns and go barren like Egypt. They're gonna be barren like Egypt. Where all the people go? Look at your states, certain states around here, West Virginia. Look at them areas. You go out towards the west. Look at them areas. There's no industry. There's not too much industry out there. Ain't no jobs in places like Oregon. All the jobs is they somewhat coming towards few little places like Idaho, whatever. But even so many jobs can go there, high tech jobs. And you got people coming from across the world that teach to train people locally, and then kill them for not going out of town. So you have an integration of other people who have to train other people to bring in the industry of other people. You dumb backward ass people, because you scared your whiteness. Well, guess what? Your whiteness is going to come to an end anyway, along with your white supremacy, your white nationalism. Because when you leave this earth, guarantee you, and you never repent of your whiteness and your white nationalism and your white supremacy, oh, the Most High got a good place for you. With all the ones that fell before you. You would be down there with all the white nationalists, white supremacy. And it's a nice place down there. This is nice and hot. Very hot. Where you don't hardly breathe no air. You be down there with other groups of people who sinned on this earth. That's where you're going. Keep hating in your heart. Teach your kids hate in your heart. And you die with that in your heart. And we stand before the one in the book of Revelations. Who is the revelation of Christ? Who's Yeshua Mashiach? When you look at his countenance, you're going to see a bronze man with amber and gold opaz. You going to call him the N-word? You'll figure it out. They don't tell you about that with your dumb, ignorant, backward ass. And you know what he's going to say? You're gonna melt. You're gonna cry like a baby, cause she'll be this old, pitiful, ugly, rugged, raggedy piece of crap right in front of him. And if she died with that, guess where she's going? Like many others like her, they going to the pit of hell. White supremacy will head to the pit of hell, literally. It's going to be destroyed forever. So there's no whiteness that's going to get you out of it. And many of you that spoke this through centuries after centuries are in the pit of hell. Don't believe me? Ask people who had that experience in hell. Tell them what did they see. Tell them what happened to the ones like Hitler and Margaret Sanger. Tell them where they at. Try to annihilate because they had so much disgrievancy for other people. And all them future Nazis are going straight into hell. All them Klansmen is going straight into hell. Like the murderers, and I don't care if they're mafia, black gang members, or what. They're all going to hell if they don't repent. Oh, and the people in the sundown towns that had that hatred, they going to hell. There ain't no white Jesus like they tell you it is. There ain't gonna be no white Jesus when you come to the end of your life. You'll find out. You'll find out. Oh man. I bet you a lot of people would like to be in a fly in your room when you be judged. But you will. So if you're a white supremacist that ever come across this video, you better believe I'm telling the truth. You better believe I'm telling the truth. So white, again, it's going to hell. And think about it. Because there's no white supremacy, no other supremacy in heaven. And he won't let you come into the kingdom with that. And you'll be rotten in hell. And maybe some people in your family who didn't carry that spirit will be in heaven. Being with everybody for every walks of life. But you won't be there. Because you choose to. Like the others did. That's my message to anybody who's a white supremacist. Whether you direct or indirect. You are going to hell in a basket if you don't repent and renounce it before you leave this earth. You a sad son of a gun. And you will be right down to your father, the devil, saying, good job for hating, putting all that hate that I told you. That's be the funny part. And he said, oh, why did I change my mind? Oh, Lord Jesus, I'm sorry. Too late by then. I'm sorry. And then you be cursing and blaspheming him, calling him the N-word. While you in hell. Because you know why you're going to call me N-word? Because subconsciously you're racist. And you probably carry that into the pit of hell. When you see he's burnt, he have dark body as burnt as bronze, dark as gold. His ankles and feet is burnt as he burnt in a fire. Pierce his eyes is like lightning. Figured it out. Your ignorant ass is going to see that Christ, not the Christ that you see on your pictures with the movies, not the Christ you see that's painted on the church stained glass windows, not the Christ you see that's going to look like that Christ because you were taught to look at that Christ like everybody else on this planet. You're going to find out what the real one look like. So that's my take to white supremacists. You're going to hell with it. And many people who think like you all over the globe. So if I was you, I would really rethink about this. You might not think you think you're above the law now, but as the rain fall on the righteous as well as the unrighteousness, your time will come. And you'll see. You might curse me now, but you'll see. Promise that. You'll see who you meet at the end of his life. That's my message to the Klan, skinheads, all of them. And anybody who's in between like them. Like it would be a murderer or killers or gang members. You will be like the rest of them. It's a special set place. And if you carry on with what you have in your heart, you never know what your tomorrow's going to bring. And you know, you would drive your family away, and maybe your family who didn't carry the same views as you did, your friends didn't care. They might be in heaven, but that you as an individual won't be there. All because you let the poison in your heart hate another people who had nothing to do with you. And you know who put that in your head? This is the ones who are like that the devil, and you fell for it, and you're going to hell if you die with that in your spirit. And the Father and His Spirit will read you out on that. If you don't believe me, you'll find out one day. That's my message to you. So enjoy your sundown towns, because it won't be sundown when you leave this earth. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen. Till next time, you guys take care and be blessed.